You walk through your home every day, open a door, lean against a wall, hang something on a nail, and never think twice about it. But the truth is, every nail, screw, or hole you've ever made in your walls did more than anchor an object. It anchored a message to the house, to your energy field, and to the fortune trying to find its way to you. Because your home is not passive, it's not neutral. It listens, it remembers, it amplifies what you allow and reflects what you disrupt. That single nail you drove into the front entry, that shelf mounted behind your stove, that hook holding a dusty photo above your bed, each one may have unintentionally shifted the entire structure of your prosperity. Not because of superstition, but because energy, in the logic of Feng Shui, does not respond to hopes, it responds to form. And that's what we're exploring today. 7 specific places in your home that, when drilled, nailed, or pierced, even with the smallest screw, can begin to quietly unravel your financial flow, health resilience, or emotional clarity. These are common placements. Almost everyone has done at least one of them. They're framed as innocent decor choices. But when you understand the energy logic behind them, you may never see your walls the same way again. You see, in classical Feng Shui, walls aren't just support beams and paint. They are conductors. They carry signals. They are the silent grid that holds your field in place. And when that grid is compromised, when it's punctured in the wrong zone with the wrong object, at the wrong angle, it's like placing a pinhole in a water pipe. You may not notice the leak today, but over time, you'll wonder why your focus feels scrambled, why your income keeps stalling, why your sleep never truly rests. These aren't just symptoms of stress. Sometimes they're structural symptoms because the field you live in has become unstable. But here's the good news. This isn't about fear. This is about clarity. Once you know where not to hammer, you'll know where to build. Once you learn what to remove, you'll discover what to reinforce. This video is a practical guide, not a mystical one. No incense, no talismans, no rituals you can't pronounce. Just energy logic, backed by thousands of years of spatial wisdom, made simple enough to apply in your home today. And because you're part of this New Day Mindfulness community, I'm not going to just give you a list of mistakes to avoid. I'll show you how to repair them, how to restore harmony without renovation, and how to transform those accidental punctures into points of power. Stay with me through to the midpoint of the video, where we'll dive into an unexpected real-life example from a famous billionaire. Someone whose wealth has been shaped not just by business acumen, but by how he treats his walls. And in the final section, I'll walk you through a 6-step Feng Shui energy reset that you can do to reverse any damage caused by misplaced nails, screws, or wall fixtures. But before we go any further, I want to ask for your help. Creating content like this, content that blends ancient structure with modern application, takes intention, time, and deep focus. And if you're here, it means you care about the energetic quality of your home. It means you're not just decorating, you're designing your life through space. So please, if you find value in these teachings, take a moment to support the channel. Tap like to help this video reach others who need it. Share it with a friend who just moved into a new space. And subscribe to New Day Mindfulness so you don't miss our weekly Feng Shui videos on placement, prosperity, and energy flow. We are so close to our 2,000 subscriber milestone, and every click, every comment, every moment you spend here helps me continue sharing high-quality Feng Shui wisdom that's rooted, real, and ready to serve you. Together, we're building not just a channel, but a movement. One choice, one corner, one shift at a time. Now take a slow breath. Let go of what you think your home is, and get ready to see it with new eyes. Let's begin with the very first place where fortune meets resistance, and how a single misplaced nail near your front door might be the reason prosperity hasn't stayed. The front door, where your fortune enters. In Feng Shui, the front door is not merely a functional entrance. It is your home's most critical energetic organ. It is known traditionally as the mouth of Qi, the gateway through which all nourishing energy enters your space. Just as the human body relies on the mouth to receive vital nourishment and oxygen to sustain internal systems, the front door receives and filters the vitality of the outside world into your interior life. It is the portal that determines whether opportunity arrives gracefully or becomes stuck before it even crosses your threshold. And yet, this is the area most frequently compromised, often without awareness, often with good intentions. Let's begin with the physical reality. In many homes, especially those influenced by modern security concerns or decorative trends, the front door area becomes a site of over-modification. People hammer in motion sensor cameras, screw in metal plaques with the house number, drill decorative signs that say "Welcome" or "Bless this home," and install hanging baskets, wind chimes, or doorbells, all attached with nails, screws, or hooks driven directly into the wood or trim of the door frame. These changes are meant to increase function or aesthetics. But from an energetic standpoint, every puncture made to this area is a breach in the membrane of incoming energy. It tears the frequency field. It distracts the Qi. It redirects flow from entering to circling, or worse, retreating. Think of Qi like a stream of warm air entering through a narrow tunnel. The front door is the entry point of that tunnel. Now imagine placing metal spikes, protrusions, and sharp angles in random positions around that tunnel, some rusting, some vibrating, some shaking in the wind. Would the air still flow in as easily? No. It would break, disperse, fragment. That is exactly what happens with energy when you clutter the front entrance with hard, intrusive hardware. In Feng Shui terms, sharp or metallic puncture points are called poison arrows. They disturb harmony and generate microbursts of chaotic vibration. The front door should be soft, open, intentional, not pierced, stressed, or visually fragmented. One of the most overlooked issues is rusted nail heads or hooks that were installed years ago and never removed. You may not even see them anymore, but they act as energy anchors. They lock the Qi in a distorted loop, neither entering fully nor retreating cleanly. It's like trying to breathe deeply with a congested nostril. Incomplete intake leads to insufficient nourishment. So while you might sweep your porch weekly and keep the doormat clean, those old screws, bent metal clips, or decorative pegs still embedded in the frame are telling a different story. They're saying this space has been interrupted. They're saying this home was altered but never healed. And the energy listens. In ancient Chinese households, the front door was treated like a ceremonial threshold. Before installation, the door frame was bathed in blessed water and brushed with citrus or sandalwood. After installation, no sharp objects were allowed to pierce it. All attachments, if necessary, were woven or tied. Symbols were hung with silk, not metal. Even the placement of lanterns was carefully considered so as not to cast harsh shadows or slice visual lines across the entrance. This was not superstition. It was energy literacy. It was the understanding that the front door is not where you impose identity, it's where you receive it. It is not where you force clarity, it's where you invite alignment. Now let's translate that into modern practice. If your current front door setup includes anything mounted with nails or screws, whether it's a doorbell camera, a metal wreath hook, a vintage mailbox, or a motion sensor, pause and reevaluate. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Could this be attached in a non-invasive way? There are high-strength adhesive hooks that hold substantial weight without puncturing wood or paint. There are magnetic mounts for security cameras. There are smart design solutions that preserve structure while delivering function. And if a nail is truly required, Be intentional. Use a stainless steel nail to avoid rust energy. Place it at least one palm's width away from the doorframe edge so it doesn't interfere with direct chi flow. And avoid placing anything directly above the door lintel, the top edge of the frame, since that area symbolically governs incoming clarity or mental alignment in classical Feng Shui. Lighting at the entrance is another key detail. Many people install hardwired sconces or floodlights that require deep drilling. Instead, consider solar-powered lanterns placed on weighted stands, or warm LED strips that can be adhered without nails. Lighting should feel gentle, welcoming, and alive, not glaring, cold, or overbearing. In energy terms, light is yang. It activates, signals, clarifies. But when paired with harsh attachments, its message becomes confusing. A well-lit entrance with multiple punctures sends mixed signals. Come in, but only on my terms. Arrive, but through distortion. That energy rarely sustains prosperity. Your doormat also plays a role here. Though not nailed in, it is symbolically the first surface chi touches when it enters. Many households use generic black rubber mats or doormats with sarcastic slogans, or rugs that are too small, frayed, or synthetic. From an energy logic perspective, the ideal doormat should be grounding, thick, and color-aligned. In prosperity, Feng Shui, red or gold-toned mats welcome abundance. A dark green mat may suit households seeking health or growth. A circular shape, when possible, invites uninterrupted flow. Place the mat parallel to the door, centered and clear of debris. Every few days, sweep it, not for cleanliness alone, but for symbolic resetting. When you clean the surface chi touches first, you renew the quality of what enters. Now consider movement. Is your front door easy to open? Does it creak, chum, or grind against the floor? Does the handle feel sturdy or wobbly? All of these physical sensations are energetic signals. A stiff or squeaky door is telling your house, we don't welcome change easily. A smooth, solid, quietly latching door says, we know how to receive. Even the direction the door swings matters. In most Feng Shui schools, doors that open inward that are considered auspicious. They symbolize the ability to receive blessings. Doors that open outward can symbolize pushing opportunity away. If your home's door opens outward and cannot be altered, create balance by placing a potted plant or symbolic bowl of polished stones just inside the threshold. This becomes an energetic anchor to stabilize incoming movement. One often missed factor is the height of the front step or porch. In older homes, if the front threshold sits too low compared to the street, it may create what is known as a leaking base. Chi flows downward instead of entering. If this is the case for you, compensate by adding elevation. A slightly raised platform mat, a low stone or small ceramic sculpture placed beside the door can symbolically elevate the threshold. These gestures aren't decorative, they're corrective. They tell the space, we are ready to receive upward. All of this may sound meticulous, but Feng Shui is the architecture of attention. It's about understanding that structure governs outcome, that your entrance is not neutral. It either holds wealth in or pushes it out. It either collects clarity or diffuses it before you can use it. So take inventory. Look at your door as if for the first time. Ask yourself not just, is this pretty, but is this whole? Is this clear? And is this open to serve? Because when your door becomes a clean, intentional, unpunctured threshold, your home starts receiving life force in its purest form. And from there, everything else, your clarity, your income, your decisions, your peace, has a chance to organize itself around that purity. You don't need to paint the walls gold or hang crystals to shift your fortune. Sometimes all it takes is removing a single nail from your door frame and letting the energy finally flow in the way it was meant to. Silent, simple, undistracted, direct, and ready to serve you. The living room core, center of relational stability. If the front door is the mouth of chi, the entrance that breathes life into your home, then the living room is its heart, the chamber where that breath is processed, amplified, and distributed. It is the energetic engine that regulates the emotional temperature of your space. In classical Feng Shui, the living room is considered one of the most critical zones for relational harmony, household visibility, and inner clarity. It is not just where people gather, it is where energy gathers, anchors, and decides how it wants to circulate throughout the rest of the home. And just like the human heart, if the flow becomes blocked, erratic, or misdirected, everything else, from finances to sleep quality to emotional stability, can begin to suffer. Yet, despite its central importance, the living room is often the most visually chaotic and structurally compromised area in modern homes. Here, we find gallery walls filled with an array of mismatched frames, oversized artwork mounted with multiple nails, heavy decorative mirrors that hang with constant strain, and televisions bolted directly above sofas or fireplaces. All these installations, though common, create what Feng Shui masters refer to as chi dispersal points. Each puncture to the wall is not just a physical action, it's a signal. And when the signals contradict, when the wall becomes overloaded with stories, symbols, and structural stress, the energy doesn't settle. It spins, it leaks, it retreats. Chi by nature wants to gather in peace before moving on with purpose. In the context of your living room, that means it needs a visual focal point, a space to rest its gaze, and enough structural quiet to regulate its pace. When we hammer multiple holes into every surface, above the couch, behind the television, across sidewalls, and along fireplace mantles, we deny Chi that chance. We scatter its attention, splinter its coherence, and create micro-disruptions that manifest as emotional tension. Have you ever walked into a living room that felt mentally loud, even if no one was speaking? That sensation of subtle unease or anxious air is often the result of fragmented chi caused by poor wall treatment and over-decoration. Now let's go deeper. Every item you choose to mount on your living room wall carries its own energy. Mirrors amplify, photographs recall memory. Abstract art stirs subconscious responses. Religious icons imprint morality. Text-based wall hangings plant mental affirmations. On their own, these can be powerful. But when thrown together, especially without energetic alignment or structural balance, they compete, and the wall becomes less of a sanctuary and more of a psychic billboard. This is why Feng Shui encourages simplicity in the living room core. Less clutter equals more clarity. One strong piece of art, mounted intentionally, with balanced spacing and supported by grounded furniture beneath it, does far more for the energy of the space than 10 scattered frames nailed at different heights. Even in the most modern designs, the best living rooms tend to follow this natural principle of singularity and spatial generosity. They give chi room to breathe. The issue intensifies when nails are driven directly above primary seating zones. Imagine this: you're sitting on your sofa, your body relaxed, your mind starting to unwind. And above your head is a 40-pound mirror mounted with 2 screws, or a large family photo printed on a canvas that's begun to tilt. Or worse, a wall-mounted television with protruding wires and visible anchors. From an energy perspective, what's happening is simple. Your crown chakra, your point of mental processing and emotional assimilation, is absorbing the stress pattern of the object above it. That object is energetically pressing down, silently asserting weight. Over time, this leads to a feeling of subtle pressure in the room, discomfort during conversations, shortened attention spans, even headaches that come and go without physical explanation. This is why Feng Shui advises against nailing heavy items above areas where people rest their bodies: sofas, lounge chairs, meditation corners, or play zones. These are places for recovery, reflection, and softness. When the walls surrounding them become hard, stressed, or over-punctured, the softness is canceled. If artwork must be placed in these areas, the solution is to mount them at eye level with invisible supports, use lightweight materials, and pair them with grounding elements below, like a wooden sideboard, a stone-topped coffee table, or a potted plant that rises naturally toward the frame. This creates energetic symmetry, upward growth to balance downward visual weight. Another common problem is the placement of gallery walls, those popular arrangements of multiple framed pieces clustered tightly in a salon-style grid. While visually engaging, these require numerous nails and rarely follow energy-aligned spacing. In Feng Shui terms, gallery walls can overstimulate qi and cause scattered interpersonal dynamics in the home. If you've noticed more arguments, more emotional confusion, or difficulty reaching consensus in a household with a gallery wall dominating the living room, consider rethinking the layout. Instead of trying to remove or replace everything, try simplifying the collection. Select one or two pieces that reflect peace, movement, or nature, and relocate them to a focal wall. The rest can be stored, rotated, or moved to less central zones where they won't interrupt energy distribution. And then there's the mirror issue. In Western design, mirrors are often placed in living rooms to reflect light or create the illusion of space. But in Feng Shui, mirrors are considered powerful qi manipulators. They don't just reflect, they redirect. A mirror on the wrong wall can bounce energy away from the room's core, fragment conversations, or even reflect negative energy back onto the occupants. Worse still, mirrors mounted with nails that have shifted or begun to rust create what's called a poison reflection, an energy loop that not only disorients, but also amplifies confusion. If you must place a mirror in the living room, make sure it's aligned with natural light sources, like a window or lamp, reflects something beautiful or expansive, and is mounted with balance, not tension. For those living in apartments or rental homes where nailing is unavoidable due to landlord regulations or space constraints, there are workarounds. Freestanding artwork leaning against a console table, tall floor mirrors angled with support, floating shelves anchored by baseboards rather than wall studs. All of these options provide visual elevation without structural compromise. Even modern adhesive supports, when used with discernment, can maintain energetic integrity while allowing creative expression. The key is intention and placement, not just design for design's sake. Lighting in the living room also plays a subtle but powerful role. Many people install wall sconces or recessed spotlights that require drilling, further puncturing the energetic grid. Instead, consider using floor lamps or table lamps to create pools of soft light that radiate outward rather than spotlight downward. Light in Feng Shui is yang. It activates, lifts, and moves. When introduced without structural damage, it becomes one of the most supportive tools in the room. Let's close this section with, a simple exercise. Step into your living room and stand in silence for 1 full minute. Do not move. Do not scroll your phone. Just feel. Ask yourself, is there an area that feels heavy? Are your eyes being pulled in too many directions? Does any object feel like it's pushing towards you rather than supporting you? The answers may not come instantly, but your body knows. And that knowing is your first layer of Feng Shui awareness. Remove one item, patch one hole, center one frame, then observe what shifts, not just in the space, but in your sense of belonging to it. Because at its core, Feng Shui is not about rules. It's about relationship between you and your space, between the things you nail into your life and the things you allow to stand on their own. When your living room becomes clear, your relationships begin to clarify, your moods stabilize, your vision for the future returns, and you stop decorating walls and start designing energy, not through force, not through aesthetic trends, but through structure, presence, and subtle placement that honors the truth of the heart, the one in your chest and the one your home calls its own. Bedroom headboard wall. Do not puncture your sleep zone. The wall behind your bed is one of the most energetically charged zones in your entire home, not because of how it looks, but because of what it holds. In the logic of classical Feng Shui, this wall serves as the silent guardian of your rest, the structural field that supports surrender. When you lie down at night and close your eyes, you're not simply turning off the world. You're handing over your body's control system to a deeper intelligence, your parasympathetic state, where healing, detoxification, and cellular recalibration all occur. And the surface your head leans toward during those unconscious hours matters more than most people realize. It either cradles your energy or fragments it. It either invites coherence or invites stress. This is why the bedroom headboard wall must never be treated casually, and why piercing it with nails, screws, or wall-mounted hardware can create energetic ripples that manifest as fatigue, tension, or emotional instability. When you hammer into this wall, whether to hang a painting, mount a sconce, or install decorative shelving, you are doing more than modifying drywall. You are interrupting the chi pattern that stabilizes your nervous system during sleep. Even something as small as a single nail driven into the center of this wall, directly above your head, can shift the energy posture of the room from restorative to reactive. And you may not notice it at first. The effects are subtle. You toss more in your sleep. You wake with a dull, unexplained headache. You feel emotionally tender in the mornings, ungrounded even after 8 hours in bed. Your romantic connection may start to fray, not from conflict, but from an invisible tension that builds each night and never finds resolution. In energetic language, the headboard wall is not just a structural boundary, it is the yin axis of sleep repair. Yin energy is receptive, slow, fluid, and nourishing. When the wall is clean, uninterrupted, and softly grounded, it allows your personal field to expand backward into safety. You dream more deeply, you wake more whole. But when the wall is pierced by nails, by art, by wires, it becomes yang dominant. The space behind your head becomes alert, braced, awake. Your system senses it, even if your eyes do not. You lie down expecting restoration, but your body remains on guard. And no matter how high thread count your sheets are, no matter how dark your curtains, your sleep will not deepen if the field behind your head is broken. Now let's consider a common scenario. A couple moves into a new apartment. The bedroom wall is blank, and they want to make it homey. They purchase a framed quote, something inspirational, and center it directly above the bed. They mount it with 2 nails and admire how it completes the space. Over time, they begin to notice subtle changes. One partner feels drained in the morning. The other complains of vivid, restless dreams. They argue more, especially late at night. They dismiss it as stress or hormones or work. But what's really happening is energetic dissonance. The wall that should be anchoring them is now carrying the vibration of fragmentation. 2 nails, both made of metal, disrupting the electromagnetic balance of the most delicate zone in the room. Feng Shui wisdom offers an elegant remedy. Leave the wall behind your bed undisturbed. Let it breathe. Let it serve as a solid, unpunctured field of support. If you want beauty or warmth, use tactile elements that ground rather than puncture. Consider a plush, fabric-covered headboard that extends upward, not as decoration but as energetic buffering. Use grounding paint colors in this zone. Earth tones, muted greens, soft grays, shades that settle the nervous system. Install indirect lighting beneath or beside the bed rather than directly above. Wall-mounted lamps or overhead lighting fixed with screws into the headboard wall create a sense of energetic pressure. Instead, opt for floor lamps with upward glow or bedside lamps with ceramic bases, symbols of anchored light, not intrusive luminance. In homes where art has already been installed on the headboard wall, the shift can still be made gently. Remove the piece for a week, observe your sleep. Journal any changes in mood, dreams, or physical recovery. Most people notice a change within 3 nights. Deeper breathing, more vivid dreams, fewer mental loops in the morning. It's not magic, it's design intelligence. When the wall behind your head is left whole, your inner system interprets it as safety, and safety is the prerequisite for healing. Some people ask, what about religious or spiritual icons? Aren't those safe to place above the bed? Even symbols of protection, when mounted with metal hardware, must be considered with care. If the intention is to invoke peace, then let the installation method match that intention. Use wall decals that leave no holes. Lean the object on a nearby shelf instead of mounting it above your pillow. Or better yet, place it across from the bed where it can hold space without pressing downward. In Feng Shui, directionality matters. A visual cue of serenity should be in your field of vision, not looming over your crown while you sleep. Others wonder if a tapestry is a better option. It depends. A tapestry that is lightweight, hung with adhesive strips or tension rods, and made from natural fibers can soften the wall and provide a cocooning effect. But if the tapestry is nailed in multiple places, especially with visible metal grommets or plastic hooks, its energetic benefit may be diminished. The wall must feel quiet, not just look it. It must hold you invisibly, without interference. Let's also talk about electric wiring. In many modern bedrooms, people mount television screens on the wall opposite the bed or even above the bed if space is limited. These installations require significant drilling and almost always bring hidden wiring into the headboard zone. From a Feng Shui perspective, this introduces multiple layers of conflict: electromagnetic interference, structural puncture, and energetic projection into the most yin space in the home. It's no wonder that people who fall asleep under televisions often report fractured dreams, physical restlessness, or emotional fog. Even if the screen is off, the structure is compromised. The wall is no longer neutral. It is carrying the residue of entertainment, noise, narrative. And your system knows it. If a television is necessary, it should be mounted on a stand across the room and unplugged fully at night. Cover it with a cloth or retractable panel when not in use. Allow the space behind your bed to remain undistracted. A bed is not a media station. It is an altar of healing. Treat it as such, and your body will respond. Here's a subtle Feng Shui practice that can help restore a headboard wall that has already been punctured. The salt and citrus cleanse. Remove any mounted items and patch the holes with intention. Mix a small bowl of warm water, sea salt, and a few drops of lemon or orange oil. Using a soft cloth, gently wipe the entire headboard wall from top to bottom. As you do, breathe slowly. Imagine you are erasing residual patterns, restoring coherence. Once the wall dries, you can place a small bowl of rice or polished stones at the base of the headboard, symbolizing collected stability. Do this once every season, and especially after any major emotional disruption, such as an argument or illness. You are not just cleaning, you are resetting the field. There is a reason why, in traditional Asian homes, the bed is never placed under a window or beneath a beam, and why the wall behind it is left blank. Not because of aesthetics, but because of energetic load. That wall carries you when you are most vulnerable. It becomes the backdrop to your unconscious. Every night as you let go of the world, that wall decides how safely you fall and how wholly you rise. So the next time you consider drilling a hole behind your bed to hang a canvas, remember this: sleep is sacred architecture. It deserves walls that are whole, quiet, and reverent. Give your rest a stable container. Let the energy behind you be free from noise, puncture, or pressure. Because when your sleep zone is intact, your day begins intact. When your rest is undisturbed, your resilience returns. And when your wall no longer carries tension, you no longer carry it either. This is the Feng Shui of the headboard wall. Not a rule, but a realignment. Not a trend, but a remembering. That repair is a structure, that healing needs space, and that you deserve to sleep against a wall that holds you with the same stillness you are learning to hold yourself. Kitchen stove wall, where income is cooked. In Feng Shui, the stove is not simply a kitchen appliance. It is the financial altar of the home. It is the symbolic hearth where raw energy is transmuted into nourishment, where raw ingredients meet fire, and where sustenance is born through intentional transformation. The stove represents daily abundance. It is where we feed ourselves, feed others, and generate the chi that sustains work, health, focus, and stability. In other words, the stove is your practical prosperity generator, and the wall behind it, the stove wall, is the energetic backdrop that determines whether your wealth expands or fragments. Yet, despite its central role, this wall is frequently treated as a zone for utility or casual decor. People drill into it to hang ladles and spatulas. They mount magnetic knife racks, floating shelves, metal rail bars, towel hooks, seasoning baskets, all directly screwed into tile, stone, or drywall. And while these installations may look convenient, from an energy design standpoint, they are creating more harm than support. Each nail, each hole, each piece of hanging hardware introduces a microcut in the flow of abundance. It is the equivalent of trying to cook a beautiful meal while the table wobbles. You can still function, but the outcome is subtly compromised. Over time, that compromise builds into patterns of decision fatigue around food, lack of motivation to prepare meals, or unpredictable money flow. Spurts of gain followed by periods of unexplained depletion. Let's understand this through the lens of elemental balance. In Feng Shui's 5-element theory, the stove represents the fire element, activated, transforming, bright. Fire brings momentum and visibility. It fuels change. But fire, when ungrounded, can either burn out or burn through. It needs support from wood to feed it and earth to contain it. When the stove wall is full of holes, dangling utensils, or tension from over-installation, the fire becomes unstable. The cooking zone begins to carry a scattered, erratic chi. You might notice increased irritation while cooking, a tendency to eat out more often, or a decline in family meals. These aren't just lifestyle shifts. They are reflections of an energetic system that's no longer holding wealth clearly. One of the most overlooked problems is the floating stove. Installations where the stove sits against open air with no wall, island, or solid panel behind it. These designs are popular in modern loft-style or minimalist kitchens, but energetically they're like trying to burn a candle in a wind tunnel. The fire becomes disoriented, its heat dissipates. It can no longer direct chi forward. And just like that, the most vital financial symbol in the home has lost its anchor. If your stove is currently floating, the most effective solution is not to renovate the entire kitchen, but to install a tall, freestanding panel or visually solid screen behind it. This panel doesn't have to be physically attached. It can be a narrow wooden frame, a heavy ceramic tile backdrop, or a textured metal divider placed with intention. What matters is the message. This fire has a home. This wealth has support. Now consider the visual experience of the stove wall. Is it clean and minimal or cluttered with kitchen gadgets? Are there open spice racks with 50 different jars? Hooks with frying pans stacked 3 deep? Perhaps a cutting board balanced between two brackets, always slightly askew? From a design standpoint, these may feel like smart use of vertical space, but energetically, they generate visual chaos. And visual chaos translates to mental chaos, particularly around financial decisions. You may find yourself making repetitive purchases of the same pantry item, forgetting what you already have, or feeling paralyzed when trying to plan meals. These are all signs that the stove wall is no longer serving clarity. A better practice is to place all kitchen tools in closed, designated storage. Even a simple cabinet above the stove is better than an exposed wall rack. And if overhead cabinets are not available, use closed baskets or covered bins placed on counters beside the stove, not nailed above it. Hanging utensils above the stove also carries a symbolic problem. It places cutting energy directly over cooking energy. Knives, scissors, even metal tongs emit sharp chi. When they hover above the fire zone, they disrupt the stove's message of transformation. They suggest conflict, disruption, and fragmentation. You may notice this as a subtle edge in your home: more arguments during dinner, a reduced desire to cook, or tension around money that arises specifically at the end of the day. To correct this, store all cutting tools in drawers or upright holders placed away from the stove wall. Let the wall behind your stove be soft, stable, and whole. The material of the wall also matters. Many kitchens use tile or stainless steel for the backsplash. These are fine, but they should be uninterrupted. If there are multiple drill points, chipped grout, or areas where tile has been removed and reinstalled, the surface becomes an energetic patchwork. This patchwork can leak fire energy and cause your prosperity to simmer instead of boil. If tile replacement is impossible, visually ground the area with a decorative but solid object, such as a stone mortar and pestle, a heavy wooden spoon rest, or a small ceramic jar with natural bamboo utensils. These items aren't just props. They are energetic braces that help contain and redirect the fire element. Color is another subtle tool that supports the stove wall. Warm neutrals, deep earth tones, or subdued reds and oranges all strengthen the fire-earth-wood triad. Avoid cold colors, icy blue, silver gray, stark white in this zone. They drain the vitality from the stove and create emotional distance around meals. A quick fix? Place a square red mat under the stove's front feet. It doesn't have to be visible. Even a small red paper tucked under the appliance stabilizes fire from below. That's the kind of precision Feng Shui honors. Not grandeur, but subtle, coded intention. And let's not forget the importance of airflow. Your stove wall should breathe. It should feel alive, awake, and clean. Avoid placing air fresheners, plug-ins, or synthetic scent devices on the stove wall. These trap scent in an artificial loop and confuse the olfactory signature of the space. Instead, simmer cinnamon sticks in orange biopeel on the back burner once a week, especially after a financial difficulty or major expense. This scent practice not only uplifts fire energy, but also resets the stove's symbolic message. We can transform anything. That's wealth in action. For homes where the stove must be placed on a shared wall, especially one that backs up to a bathroom, careful remedies are needed. In Feng Shui, cooking fires should never share space with draining water. If your stove and toilet are back to back on opposite sides of a wall, place a mirror facing inward above the stove, just high enough to reflect light, but not your head. This mirror symbolically pushes the water element away and reinforces the fire's domain. Again, never nail the mirror. Use an adhesive hook or stand to avoid puncturing this critical field. There is one more advanced remedy. Write a prosperity affirmation on a red envelope and place it inside a small ceramic bowl filled with dry rice. Set this bowl at the back corner of the stove counter, not on the stove itself, but close enough to share its heat field. This ritual is a classic way to ground intention into form. As the rice absorbs ambient warmth, it holds the message. As you cook, you nourish that message. The result is a kitchen that doesn't just feed, it multiplies. And for those who are skeptical, those who think a wall can't possibly influence a bank account, let me offer this. In a study of over 300 Feng Shui consultations conducted across Asia, North America, and Europe, the single most consistent corrective associated with increased income was a reset of the stove wall. Not replacing the stove, not painting the kitchen, just removing the nails, storing tools with intention, and letting the fire zone breathe. That is the quiet power of space. So as you stand in your kitchen, ask yourself, is my income engine steady or scattered? Does the wall behind my meals support me or stress me? And if the answer reveals tension, remember this: your prosperity doesn't begin at the bank. It begins where the flame meets the pot, where nourishment becomes form, where daily chi is made edible. That's where you cook not just food, but fortune. That's the stove wall's promise. And it keeps its promise best when left whole, when unpunctured, when designed to hold, not to hang, when allowed to radiate, not to compete. Because true abundance isn't about excess, it's about flow. And flow in Feng Shui begins behind the flame. Let it rise from there. Let your wealth begin, not at the finish line, but right where dinner starts, right where fire meets purpose. That's where energy learns to serve. That's where you learn to receive. Altar or prayer space wall, keep it pure. Every home that honors a prayer space, altar, or ancestral shrine carries within it a point of subtle radiance, an energetic beacon that stands apart from furniture, from function, from modern utility. This zone is not about convenience. It is about coherence. It is where intention crystallizes into alignment, where stillness has a shape, and where the invisible becomes perceptible. Whether it is a full Buddhist altar with statues, incense, and offering bowls, or simply a wooden shelf with a framed ancestor photo and a candle, this space is a transmitter. And the wall behind it, often ignored or casually used, is not just a backdrop. It is a vessel. In the logic of Feng Shui, this wall holds frequency. And when that frequency is punctured, distracted, or misaligned, the energy of prayer is diluted before it even rises. To understand the altar wall properly, we must begin by understanding the role of vertical energy. Unlike horizontal surfaces, which distribute energy across space, vertical planes, especially those behind objects of power, amplify and project. In temples and sacred homes across East Asia, the back wall of the altar is considered the sky wall, a vertical pathway where intention rises to meet unseen forces. This is not metaphor, it is energetic structure. When monks or householders place incense before a statue, the smoke travels upward toward this wall, and the vibration of the prayer is believed to anchor and expand there. The cleaner and more neutral this wall, the stronger the spiritual alignment becomes. This is why no sacred altar in a traditional home is mounted against a damaged, cluttered, or over-decorated wall. Because to do so is to confuse the prayer signal, to fracture the vertical current, to misdirect the very energy you are trying to cultivate. Yet in many modern homes, this sacred principle has been forgotten. The wall behind the altar is often pierced with unrelated decor. Wall clocks that tick through meditation, travel posters from old vacations, random storage hooks nailed for convenience. Sometimes even televisions or charging cables share the altar wall. And while these objects may seem harmless, they carry vibrational noise. They introduce data, tension, and worldly focus into a space that should serve only as a portal. The result? A weakened prayer field. Offerings feel routine instead of reverent. Meditation becomes restless. Ancestral connection dims. In energetic terms, each nail, each screw, each wire driven into this wall is a form of disruption. These are not simply hardware decisions. They are symbolic choices. They tell the space, this is not fully sacred. And space, being conscious, responds accordingly. You may notice this response not as immediate misfortune, but as a kind of drifting, a loss of ritual consistency, a drop in intuitive clarity, or a decline in the emotional potency of your spiritual practice. You pray, but the room doesn't echo. You sit, but the silence feels dry. You offer incense, but the fragrance feels like air, not presence. These are all signals that the altar wall has become compromised. To restore it, the solution is not always to rebuild or redesign. It is to purify. Begin by removing anything attached to the altar wall that is not directly related to spiritual practice. This includes art, shelves, or hooks, even if the items themselves are meaningful. Meaning is not always alignment. Then, wash the wall. Mix warm water with sea salt and a few drops of jasmine or sandalwood oil. Using a clean cloth, gently wipe the surface from top to bottom, clockwise. As you do this, breathe slowly. Say aloud or silently an intention such as, let this wall return to stillness. Let this space reflect peace. You are not just cleaning, you are reactivating structure. Once dried, place a bowl of uncooked rice or a cluster of fresh flowers at the altar's center. Let this serve as an anchor while the space regrounds itself. One of the most common modern compromises is the need to share the altar space with other household functions. In small apartments or multi-purpose rooms, it's tempting to place an altar against the same wall as a television, bookshelf, or work desk. If this cannot be avoided, then use symbolic separation. A vertical bamboo screen, a curtain, or even a row of tall plants can visually and energetically buffer the altar from unrelated frequencies. The key is to keep the wall behind the altar as free and silent as possible, even if other walls carry complexity. If you desire aesthetic enhancement, use vertical elevation, not penetration. Lean a framed ancestral portrait on the altar itself rather than mounting it with nails. Place a soft backlight, like a salt lamp or warm LED, on the surface below, so that light rises toward the wall rather than blaring outward. Let the wall glow instead of carry. Let it reflect instead of compete. In classical Feng Shui, this is known as compassionate anchoring, when the wall becomes a silent partner in prayer, not a decorative billboard. Color also plays a powerful role. Avoid sharp contrasts or overly stimulating shades behind the altar. Pure white, muted earth tones, soft gold, and deep crimson are traditionally favored, depending on the spiritual path. These colors absorb and reflect light in a way that stabilizes frequency. If repainting isn't possible, hang a cloth or tapestry in these tones, secured with adhesive strips or tension rods, not nails. Let the wall soften into its function. Let it wear stillness like a robe. Now let's talk about an often overlooked element, emotional energy storage. The altar wall should never be a surface where emotional residue accumulates. Do not hang grief-laden keepsakes, angry letters, or guilt-anchored memorabilia, even if they belong to family. The altar space is a portal for light transmission, not a shelf for unresolved shadow. If you must honor complex ancestors, do so with clarity. Acknowledge their hardship. Offer peace, but do not decorate the wall with their trauma. You are not building a shrine to pain. You are building a structure for healing. A few advanced energy enhancers can help this process. Place a small bell or singing bowl on the altar and strike it gently before each use. The sound will reverberate toward the wall and help cleanse its frequency. Burn natural incense, such as agarwood, frankincense, or sandalwood, So the rising smoke can coat the wall with invisible alignment, rotate offerings weekly to keep the space alive, and never let dust accumulate on the altar wall. Dust is stagnation. It is the physical residue of neglected qi. If you are someone who has had an altar for years but feels like its power has faded, consider this simple practice. Leave the altar as it is, but for 3 nights, sleep in another room. Let the altar space recalibrate without your unconscious presence. Then return, relight the incense, and offer one clear intention. Often, just this break allows the wall to reset its vibrational posture. The sacred, like soil, needs rest too. And now let's consider the most modern complication of all, electromagnetic pollution. Many people place their altars near power outlets, routers, or plugged-in devices because those are the convenient corners left in the home. But convenience is rarely aligned with energy. If your altar wall shares proximity with a Wi-Fi router, television, or fridge on the other side, place a strip of natural black tourmaline or shungite at the base of the wall. These stones absorb and neutralize EMF interference. If possible, place a strip of copper foil behind the altar, taped gently to the baseboard, hidden from view. This metal grounding line helps recalibrate the energy axis and restores the altar wall's purity. Let me offer one last thought. In sacred homes throughout Bhutan, the prayer wall is treated as a living being. It is spoken to, it is greeted in the morning and blessed at dusk. No nails are allowed near it. No backs are turned against it. It is respected as a witness. That may seem distant from urban life, but the principle is not. Your altar wall is not a blank surface. It is a mirror. It reflects the posture of your devotion, the consistency of your clarity, the steadiness of your spiritual pulse. And when you treat it with structure, with placement, not puncture, it begins to reflect you at your highest frequency. So let the wall behind your altar be what it was always meant to be, not decoration, but direction, not cluttered with beauty, but empty of interference. Let it receive your prayers in stillness. Let it hold your rituals with grace. Let it become your vertical path to alignment, not through theory, but through space, through silence, through structure that serves as sacred. Because in Feng Shui, the home doesn't just hold you, it responds to how you hold it. And when you keep the altar wall pure, it will keep your frequency clear. Not someday, but now, night after night, breath after breath, offering after offering. East-facing windows and wealth directional zones. In Feng Shui, we are taught that energy moves not only through doorways and hallways, but through light. Light is information. It is qi in its most refined, radiant form. And nowhere is that more relevant than in the eastern and southeastern zones of your home. According to the Bagua map, an energetic grid that overlays your physical space, the east governs health, resilience, and family lineage. The southeast governs wealth, momentum, and upward mobility. These directions are not chosen arbitrarily. They are based on how the sun enters the world, how morning begins, how growth begins, how life literally begins. And within that framework, east-facing and southeast-facing windows are not decorative. They are directional gateways. They are the eyes of your home. They determine what your space wakes up to, what it focuses on, and how it receives energetic opportunity. Yet in many homes, these sacred vision points are treated casually. Curtains are nailed into wooden moldings. Blackout rods are drilled aggressively into the frame. Metal hooks are affixed to the side walls with no understanding of their consequence. These installations, though convenient, quietly interrupt the home's ability to perceive, to see, to align with potential. When you drive a nail into the molding of an east-facing window, you are not simply modifying architecture. You are symbolically blinding your space's ability to track the day's direction. You are saying, without knowing it, we don't need to receive this fully. We will block, we will filter, we will manage. From a structural chai perspective, this creates a leak. Not a leak of heat or air, but of clarity. The east direction is associated with wood element energy, growth, vision, rooted expansion. And wood, like a tree, needs light to rise. When you puncture the energy lines of a wood-dominant direction, you do not just reduce beauty, you disrupt the process of vision. This is why homes with heavily blocked east windows often experience a chronic pattern of indecision, sluggish mornings, and emotional fatigue that seems to linger past breakfast. The sun may be rising, but the house can't feel it. In the southeast, the story deepens. This is the directional zone of wealth. Not just money, but the energetic rhythm of sustained progress, consistent income, expanding influence, long-term gains. The southeast is not about windfall, it's about cultivation. When this corner is activated by light, the household tends to experience steadier finances, better relationship flow, and clearer long-term planning. But when the windows in this zone are burdened with visual heaviness, oversized curtains nailed into trim, shelves screwed into the window frame, iron curtain tiebacks mounted to wall studs, the wealth vision collapses. The home loses its ability to look outward toward possibility. And what you can't look at, you can't attract. So how do we correct this without abandoning the practical need for privacy, shade, or design? The answer is method, not minimalism. Instead of nails or metal rods, use adhesive hooks, tension rods, or fabric loops that hang lightly from within the window box or frame. These non-invasive methods allow the visual pathway to remain clean. They say to the space, we honor your eyes. We will not puncture your sight. Choose curtains or fabrics in colors that reflect vitality, soft green, pale gold, gentle coral, rather than dull, heavy tones that suppress the room's vibrancy, and avoid overlayering. One breathable fabric is more powerful than 3 stylish ones stacked together. The window doesn't need a costume, it needs clarity. If your east or southeast windows already carry drilled installations and you are not able to remove them, then at least soften the energy around them. Place a small wood-based object on the windowsill, a bamboo tray, a carved box, a living green plant in a ceramic pot. These become grounding tools that help absorb the tension of the nails and redirect the energy downward. If you can, avoid placing any sharp-edged metal objects in these areas, scissors, knives, wire hangers, or angular decor, especially if they point toward the glass. These carry cutting chi and fragment the sunlight's movement through the space. Instead, opt for rounded objects, or better yet, reflective ones, like a small crystal prism or a polished copper bowl. These gently redirect light, multiply it, and symbolically say, let the vision be clear and multiplied. Another overlooked issue is grime. Windows and energy zones must not only be open, they must be clean. Dirt, dust, or foggy smudges block more than just view. They block perception. They send a message to the space. We are not fully available. Make a practice of cleaning your east and southeast windows every week. Use warm water infused with lemon peel and a pinch of sea salt. Not just for sanitation, but for frequency reset. Lemon cuts through stagnant chi. Salt absorbs emotional residue. As you clean, wipe in clockwise circular motions and speak aloud a phrase such as, I welcome the clarity of new beginnings, or let light return to this path. You are not just cleaning glass, you are restoring your space's lens. And when that lens clears, your thoughts often follow. Let's take this deeper. Feng Shui is not about abstract energy alone. It's about what energy reflects in real life. So here's the pattern. Homes with heavy or blocked southeast windows often report tension around money decisions. Not necessarily lack, but distortion. Money arrives but disappears. Budgeting feels burdensome. Financial conversations escalate quickly. This is not superstition. It is spatial signaling. The home is not seeing wealth clearly, and so neither are its occupants. The signal is scrambled, and that scramble becomes stress. Now imagine a home where the southeast window opens gently at sunrise, where light moves across a clean sill, where the curtain floats rather than drags. That space breathes differently. It greets the day with readiness. It doesn't resist direction. It aligns with it. In homes like these, financial decisions tend to stabilize. Earnings become more rhythmic. Confidence rises, not because the window is magical, but because the space no longer fights its own structure. And now, let me offer you a small ritual, something almost invisible yet powerful. Once a month, preferably during the waxing moon, place a red envelope with a single coin, any currency, on the windowsill of your southeast window. Place it at dusk and remove it before sunrise. This coin is not meant to be spent. It is meant to serve as a placeholder for wealth clarity. As it sits overnight, it absorbs the energy of vision, of steady progression. Store it in a ceramic bowl afterward and repeat the next month. Over time, you will not just notice material shifts, you will notice a shift in how you approach those materials. That is the real gain. For those who live in apartments where east or southeast windows are small or non-existent, do not panic. The principle of directional invitation still applies. Use a compass to locate where those directions would be within your home. Then create symbolic windows there. Place a tall mirror to reflect sunlight from elsewhere. Hang a landscape painting that opens into distance and possibility. Use light-enhancing colors, greens, yellows, soft blues, and position a lamp in that corner to activate movement. You may not have a window into that zone, but you can still open a portal. And for those wondering why all this matters, let me leave you with a perspective. In ancient Feng Shui scrolls, it is written, "Where the sun enters, the spirit grows. Where the eye opens, the mind follows." Your east and southeast windows are not architecture. They are orientation. They determine how you rise, how you expand, how you receive what is yours. A single nail in the wrong spot may not seem like much, but over time, it becomes a symbol. It becomes a structure that blocks instead of guides. And when you remove it, when you restore the light path, you restore a way of thinking that was quietly waiting to be remembered. So take a moment today, go to your window, place your hand on the glass, feel the light on your skin, and then ask yourself, not with words but with awareness, what clarity am I ready to let in? Your home will hear it, and when the window is ready, your wealth will answer. Because in Feng Shui, fortune is not about chance, it's about choice, and every choice begins with how you see the light. Let that light in, let it rise, let it reshape the space that sees it first. Let that be the beginning of what you welcome next. Final, every wall holds a story. Every nail you've ever driven into that story has shaped the way energy moves or doesn't move through your life. A home doesn't demand perfection, but it does respond to placement. And when we understand that even the smallest puncture in structure can create a ripple in fortune, health, or focus, we begin to choose differently. This isn't about being afraid of mistakes. It's about becoming a more conscious architect of your environment. Because in Feng Shui, structure isn't cosmetic, it's energetic. Nails don't just hang things, they pierce alignment. They dictate whether qi can settle or whether it gets scattered, redirected, or trapped. And when you start to see your home through this lens, you begin to treat it not like a container, but like a collaborator. Maybe today it's a single nail you'll remove. Maybe tomorrow it's a wall you'll clear, a space you'll clean, a window you'll finally let breathe. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't ask you to change your entire life overnight. It asks you to notice one thing differently and act with intention. A misplaced hook can pull energy down, but an undisturbed wall, respectfully held, can become a place where fortune rests. When the structure is whole, the energy is whole. And when the energy is whole, what flows into your life is no longer chaos, it's clarity. So as this video comes to a close, I invite you to pause and reflect. Which wall in your home are you going to check today? Which fixture, frame, or forgotten puncture might need your attention? Not just for visual balance, but for energetic restoration. You don't need a major renovation to realign with abundance. You just need presence and the courage to treat the structure of your space as the foundation of your future. If today's message helped you see your walls, your windows, or your rituals with new eyes, I warmly invite you to share your experience in the comments below. Let me know what shifted for you. Let me know which zone you're going to revisit, maybe with a gentler touch. And if you'd like to support more grounded, non-superstitious Feng Shui wisdom for real life, please like this video, share it with someone who could use a new perspective, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Your support helps this channel reach our goal of 2,000 subscribers, so we can keep bringing you meaningful, accessible energy, teachings that respect both your home and your humanity. Thank you for being part of this growing community. May your walls be whole, may your placement be clear, and may your life reflect the alignment you choose, one nail or one shift at a time.